The autumn wind carried the scent of pine and distant snow as Martha Rose Caldwell stepped down from the weathered stagecoach, her worn leather boots touching Wyoming soil for the first time. At 34, she had learned that life could strip everything away in a single night: her husband, her home, her certainty about tomorrow. The Great Chicago Fire had taken it all, leaving her with nothing but a small inheritance and the desperate need to start over somewhere far from the ashes of her old life. "This is as far as we go, ma'am," the driver called down, tossing her single trunk to the dusty ground. "Pine Ridge Settlement is just over that hill. You sure about this? Winter comes early in these parts." Martha pulled her wool shawl tighter around her shoulders and nodded firmly. "I'm sure." Her voice carried the quiet determination of a woman who had already survived the worst life could offer. The settlement of Pine Ridge was smaller than she'd imagined, a handful of wooden buildings scattered along a dirt road, with the massive Rocky Mountains rising like ancient guardians in the distance. The general store, a small church, a blacksmith shop, and what appeared to be a trading post comprised the entire town. It was exactly what she needed. A place where no one knew her story, where she could rebuild without the weight of sympathy and whispered conversations. As she struggled with her heavy trunk, a shadow fell across her path. She looked up to see a man unlike any she'd encountered in her sheltered Chicago life. He stood tall and lean, with weathered hands and skin bronzed by mountain sun. His dark hair, streaked with premature silver, was pulled back simply, and his eyes, a striking mixture of brown and green, held the quiet wisdom of someone who had spent years reading the language of wind and weather. "Ma'am," he said, touching the brim of his worn hat. "Name's Samuel Pedro Firme. Folks call me Sam. You look like you could use some help." His voice carried a slight accent she couldn't quite place, part frontier drawl, part something else entirely. Later, she would learn that his mother had been Shoshone, his father a Portuguese immigrant who'd tried his luck in the gold fields and stayed for love. "I'm Martha Caldwell," she replied, accepting his offered hand. His grip was firm but gentle, calloused from years of honest work. "I'm looking for the Henderson place. I've arranged to rent it." Sam's expression grew concerned. "The old Henderson cabin? Ma'am, that place has been empty for 3 years. Well, it needs considerable work. And winter's coming fast." Martha straightened her spine. "I'm not afraid of hard work, Mr. Pedro Firme. I've come here to start fresh and I intend to do exactly that." Something in her tone, perhaps the steel beneath the politeness, made Sam nod slowly. "Yes, ma'am. I can see that. Tell you what, let me help you get settled and then we can assess what needs doing before the first snow." As they walked toward the cabin, Sam carrying her trunk as if it weighed nothing, Martha found herself stealing glances at this unexpected neighbor. There was something solid about him, something that reminded her of the mountains themselves, enduring, reliable, shaped by time and weather into something both beautiful and strong. The Henderson cabin sat in a small clearing surrounded by towering pines, with a view of the valley that took Martha's breath away. But Sam had been right about its condition. The roof sagged in places, several windows were broken, and the small garden was overrun with weeds. "It's perfect," Martha said quietly, and meant it. Sam set down her trunk and studied her face. "Ma'am, I don't mean to pry, but this is hard country. Beautiful but hard. The nearest neighbor besides me is 5 miles down the mountain. Winters can last 6 months, and when the snows come, you might not see another soul for weeks at a time." Martha turned to face him fully. "Mr. Pedro Firme, I appreciate your concern. But I've lost everything once already. I'm not afraid of solitude or hard work. What I need is a chance to prove to myself that I can build something lasting." Sam was quiet for a long moment, his eyes taking in the determined set of her jaw, the way she held herself despite the obvious exhaustion of travel. Finally he nodded. "All right then. But you're not doing this alone. I know every trail, every danger, every season in these mountains. Let me help you get ready for winter. After that, if you still want to stay, I'll respect your choice." As the sun began to set behind the peaks, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson, Martha felt something she hadn't experienced since the fire: hope. This strange, quiet man with his gentle strength and obvious knowledge of the land might be exactly what she needed to survive her new beginning. "I'd be grateful for your help," she said simply. Sam smiled then, the first real smile she'd seen from him, and it transformed his entire face. "Then we'd better get started. First thing tomorrow we'll work on that roof. Can't have you getting snowed on your first week here." The next 3 weeks passed in a blur of hard work and gradual friendship. Sam arrived each morning just after sunrise, his horse loaded with tools and materials. He worked with the quiet efficiency of a man who understood both wood and weather, never making Martha feel helpless but always ensuring she learned something new. The key to mountain living, he explained one afternoon as they replaced broken window panes, is reading the signs. See how the wind shifts? That means weather's coming. And these birds, he pointed to a flock of ravens circling overhead, they're moving to lower ground. Storms may be 2 days out. Martha found herself fascinated not just by his knowledge, but by the way he shared it. Unlike her late husband, who had often explained things with barely concealed impatience, Sam taught with genuine care, as if her understanding truly mattered to him. "How did you learn all this?" she asked one evening as they sat on her newly repaired porch, sharing coffee and watching the stars emerge. Sam was quiet for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Finally he spoke. "My mother's people, the Shoshone, they've lived in these mountains for generations. She taught me to listen to the land. My father, he was a dreamer, came west looking for gold, found something better in my mother. He taught me about building things to last, about the value of honest work. Are they? Both gone now. Fever took them when I was 17. Been on my own since then mostly." He paused, then added quietly, "Gets lonely sometimes, but the mountains, they're good company if you know how to listen." Martha understood loneliness. "I know what you mean. After my husband died, I thought I'd never feel at home anywhere again. But this place." She gestured toward the vast wilderness stretching before them. "It doesn't judge. It just is." "That's exactly right," Sam said, and something in his voice made her look at him more closely. In the lamplight, his face was thoughtful, almost tender. "Martha, can I ask you something?" She nodded. "What really brought you here? I mean, a woman like you, educated, refined, you could have gone anywhere. Why choose the hardest path?" Martha considered her answer carefully. "Because easy paths don't teach you who you really are. I spent 10 years being someone's wife, someone's daughter, someone's responsibility. I need to know if I can be just me. If that's enough." Sam leaned forward slightly. "It's more than enough. These past weeks, watching you learn, watching you tackle every challenge without complaint. Martha, you're stronger than you know." Something in his tone made her heart skip. "Sam? I know it's too soon," he said quickly. "I know you're still healing. But I want you to know, whatever happens, whatever you need, I'll be here. I'll protect you, help you, stand by you. For as long as you'll have me. Forever if you'll let me." The words hung in the mountain air between them, weighted with sincerity and something deeper. Martha felt a flutter of panic mixed with unexpected warmth. It was too soon, too much, too fast. But looking into Sam's honest eyes, she saw no pressure, no demand, only a quiet promise. "Sam, I'm grateful. More grateful than I can say. But I'm not ready for. I can't." "I know," he said gently. "I'm not asking for anything you can't give. I'm just telling you that you're not alone anymore. Not if you don't want to be." The next morning brought the first real test of their partnership. Martha woke to find fresh bear tracks in the mud near her water barrel. Sam arrived to find her studying them with more curiosity than fear. "Grizzly," he said grimly. "Big one by the size of these prints. He's probably getting ready for winter, looking for easy food sources. What do? We make sure you're not an easy target. No food scraps outside, secure everything that smells like food and—" He hesitated. "Martha, maybe you should consider staying in town for a while. Just until he moves on." Martha's jaw set in the stubborn line Sam was beginning to recognize. "This is my home now. I won't be driven out by a bear. This isn't about being brave, it's about being smart. A hungry grizzly is one of the most dangerous things in these mountains. Then teach me how to be safe. But I'm not leaving." Sam studied her face, seeing the determination that had brought her across half a continent to start over. Finally he nodded. "All right. But we do this my way. No arguments, no taking chances." "Agreed." "Agreed." As they spent the day bear-proofing her cabin and the surrounding area, Martha felt a growing sense of partnership with this quiet, capable man. When he promised to protect her forever, she had thought they were just kind words. But watching him work with such focused intensity, seeing the genuine concern in his eyes, she began to understand that Sam Pedrafirme was a man who meant exactly what he said. 2 weeks later, the first snow had come and gone, leaving the world crystalline and beautiful. Martha had settled into a rhythm of mountain life that felt surprisingly natural. Her days were filled with the practical tasks of survival, tending her fire, preserving food, preparing for the long winter ahead. Sam continued to visit daily, sometimes to help with necessary work, sometimes simply to share a meal and conversation. On this particular morning, Martha decided to venture into the forest to gather the last of the season's wild berries. Sam had shown her several productive patches, and she was determined to put up enough preserves to last through the winter. She left early, carrying her gathering baskets and the small knife Sam had insisted she always carry. The morning was crisp and beautiful, with golden sunlight filtering through the pine boughs and the air sharp with the promise of winter. Martha found the berry patch exactly where Sam had described it, a sunny clearing where wild huckleberries grew in abundance. She worked methodically, filling her baskets and enjoying the peaceful solitude. She was so absorbed in her task that she didn't notice the massive shape moving through the trees behind her until a branch snapped loudly. Martha turned and her blood turned to ice. A grizzly bear, easily 7 feet tall when it reared up on its hind legs, stood at the edge of the clearing. Its small eyes fixed on her with predatory interest, and she could see the powerful muscles rippling beneath its thick brown coat. This was no curious visitor. This was a hungry predator sizing up potential prey. Every instinct screamed at her to run, but Sam's voice echoed in her memory, "Never run from a bear. They're faster than horses and running triggers their chase instinct." Instead, Martha forced herself to stand perfectly still, her heart hammering so hard she was sure the bear could hear it. The grizzly dropped to all fours and began moving toward her with deceptive casualness. Martha slowly reached for the knife at her belt, knowing it would be useless against such a massive creature but needing to feel something solid in her hand. The bear was 20 feet away when the sound of hoofbeats thundered through the forest. Sam burst into the clearing on his horse, shouting and waving his hat. But instead of frightening the bear away, the sudden noise and movement triggered its aggression. The grizzly roared, a sound that seemed to shake the very trees, and charged. What happened next unfolded with terrifying speed. Sam leaped from his horse, placing himself directly between Martha and the charging bear. He had his rifle, but at such close range with Martha behind him, a missed shot could be fatal for both of them. "Martha, get behind that big pine," he shouted, never taking his eyes off the bear. "Now!" The grizzly was almost on top of Sam when he fired. The shot caught the bear in the shoulder, spinning it around but not stopping it. Wounded and enraged, the animal turned its fury on Sam, swiping with claws that could tear a man in half. Sam rolled away from the first swipe, came up running, and deliberately led the bear away from Martha's position. She watched in horror as he dodged and weaved between the trees, the massive predator in pursuit, buying her time to reach safety but putting himself in mortal danger. "Sam!" she screamed, but he was too focused on survival to respond. The chase lasted only minutes, but they felt like hours. Finally, Sam managed to get enough distance to reload and fire again. This shot found its mark and the great bear crashed to the ground and lay still. In the sudden silence that followed, Martha could hear nothing but her own ragged breathing and the sound of Sam's boots as he approached the fallen animal, rifle ready. Only when he was certain the bear was dead did he turn to look for her. "Martha? Martha, are you hurt?" She stumbled out from behind the tree, her legs shaking so badly she could barely stand. Sam reached her in 3 quick strides and pulled her into his arms, holding her so tightly she could feel his heart racing against her chest. "I thought I'd lost you," he whispered into her hair. "When I heard that roar when I saw you standing there. God, Martha, I thought I was too late." She pulled back to look at his face, seeing the genuine fear in his eyes, the way his hands shook as he touched her face to assure himself she was real and unhurt. "You came," she said wonderingly. "You risked your life for me." "I told you I'd protect you forever," Sam said simply. "I meant it." In that moment, standing in a forest clearing with a dead grizzly bear nearby and the man who had just saved her life holding her as if she were the most precious thing in the world, Martha finally understood. This wasn't just attraction or gratitude or the practical partnership of 2 people surviving in the wilderness. This was love, real, deep, and absolutely certain. "Sam," she whispered, and then she was kissing him, pouring all her fear and relief and newfound understanding into that kiss. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing hard. "I love you," she said, the words coming easily now that she'd finally admitted the truth to herself. "I think I've been falling in love with you since that first day, but I was too scared to see it." Sam's smile was radiant. "I've loved you since you told me this broken-down cabin was perfect. I just didn't dare hope you might feel the same way." As they stood together in the mountain clearing, surrounded by the vast wilderness that had brought them together and tested their bond, Martha knew she had found something she'd never expected to find again. Not just love, but a true partner, someone who would stand with her against whatever challenges life might bring. Spring came early to the Wyoming mountains that year, and with it, a wedding that the small community of Pine Ridge would talk about for years to come. Martha Rose Caldwell became Martha Pedra Firme in a simple ceremony held in the little wooden church, with the entire settlement in attendance and wildflowers decorating every available surface. "I never thought I'd see Sam settle down," commented Mrs. Henderson, the storekeeper's wife, as she watched the couple exchange vows. "But look at him, I've never seen a man so happy." Indeed, Sam's face as he looked at his bride was radiant with joy and something deeper, a profound contentment that spoke of a man who had found his place in the world. Martha, in a simple blue dress she'd sewn herself, looked equally transformed. The tentative, grieving widow who had arrived in Pine Ridge 6 months earlier had become a confident woman who knew exactly where she belonged. "Do you, Samuel, take Martha to be your wife, to love and protect her in sickness and health, for richer or poorer, for as long as you both shall live?" asked Reverend Morrison. "I do," Sam said firmly, his eyes never leaving Martha's face. "Forever and always." When it came time for Martha's vows, she spoke words she had written herself. "Samuel, you taught me that home isn't a place, it's the person who stands beside you when the storms come. You've shown me that love isn't just words but actions, sacrifice, and the daily choice to build something beautiful together. I promise to love you, trust you, and stand with you through whatever comes. Forever." The kiss that sealed their union was witnessed by the entire community, but in that moment Martha and Sam were aware only of each other and the promise they had just made. Their first year of marriage brought the usual challenges of mountain life: harsh weather, equipment failures, the constant work of survival in an unforgiving landscape. But it also brought unexpected joys. Martha discovered she had a talent for the practical skills of frontier life, while Sam found that sharing his knowledge and his world with someone he loved made everything more meaningful. "You know," Martha said one evening as they sat on their porch watching the sunset paint the mountains in shades of gold and purple, "I used to think that starting over meant leaving everything behind. But I was wrong." Sam, who was carving a cradle for the baby they were expecting in the fall, looked up with interest. "How so?" "I didn't leave everything behind. I brought the best parts of who I was, and I found the parts one didn't know existed. And I found you." She placed her hand over her growing belly. "We're not just starting over, we're building something entirely new." Sam set down his carving and moved to sit beside her, pulling her close. "I love you, Martha Pedra Firme. More every day. Even when I insist on checking the bear traps myself? Especially then," he laughed. "Though I still worry every time you go into the woods alone." "I'm not alone," Martha said, covering his hand with hers. "I'm never alone anymore. You taught me that." As autumn painted the mountains in brilliant reds and golds, their son was born, a healthy boy with his father's dark hair and his mother's determined chin. They named him Thomas, after Martha's father, but from the beginning, everyone called him Tommy. "He's going to be a mountain man, this one," Sam said, holding his son for the first time. "Look at those hands, he's already got a grip like a bear trap." Martha, exhausted but radiant, smiled as she watched her husband cradle their child. "He's going to know he's loved. That's what matters most." Years passed, bringing more children, a daughter they named Sarah, then twin boys Michael and David. The little cabin expanded to accommodate their growing family, and Sam's reputation as a guide and tracker brought steady work from travelers and settlers heading west. But it was during their 5th winter together that Sam's promise was tested most severely. A late-season blizzard trapped the family in their cabin for nearly 2 weeks, and when the snow finally cleared enough for travel, they discovered that several families in the valley had not been as well prepared. "The Johnsons have been without food for 3 days, reported Jake Miller, who had struggled through the snow to bring news. "And old Mrs. Patterson is sick, might be pneumonia." Without hesitation, Sam began loading supplies onto his strongest horse. "I'll take food to the Johnsons first, then check on Mrs. Patterson." "Sam, it's still dangerous out there," Martha protested. "The snow is deep and there could be more storms." "These are our neighbors," Sam said simply. "We help each other. That's how we all survive." Martha looked at her husband, this man who had promised to protect her forever and had kept that promise in ways both large and small, and felt her heart swell with pride. "Then we all go. The children can stay with the Hendersons in town, and I'll help you with Mrs. Patterson. She'll need nursing care." Sam started to protest, but Martha cut him off with a look. "We're partners, remember? In everything." For the next week, they worked together to help their struggling neighbors, sharing food, providing medical care, and offering the kind of support that meant the difference between survival and tragedy in the harsh mountain winter. When it was over and everyone was safe, the community gathered to thank them. "You two saved lives this week," said Reverend Morrison. "The whole valley owes you a debt." No death, Sam replied, his arm around Martha's waist. We're all family here. Family takes care of family. As they walked home through the snow-covered forest, their children running ahead and their breath visible in the cold air, Martha reflected on the journey that had brought her to this moment. She had come to Wyoming as a broken widow seeking only survival. She had found love, purpose, and a community that felt more like home than anywhere she had ever lived. Do you ever regret it? Sam asked as if reading her thoughts. Leaving your old life behind? Martha stopped walking and turned to face him, this man who had kept every promise he had ever made to her, who had shown her that love could be both gentle and fierce, both passionate and enduring. Never, she said firmly. Not for a single moment. You promised to protect me forever and you have. But more than that, you've helped me become someone I never knew I could be. You've given me a life worth living. Sam smiled and pulled her close, kissing her there in the snowy forest with their children's laughter echoing through the trees. Forever means forever, Martha. And we're just getting started. As they continued toward home, the lights of their cabin visible through the trees and the vast mountain wilderness stretching endlessly around them, Martha knew that she had found something rarer than gold in these mountains. A love that could weather any storm, a partnership built on trust and mutual respect, and a future filled with infinite possibility. The cowboy had kept his promise. And in keeping it, he had given her everything she had never dared to dream of wanting.